the record button. And, oops, I didn't go right to the wrong thing. Okay, there we are. So is everybody seeing?
Yes.
There we are. Okay, and yeah, hey, I already hit the record button, so I'm one step above doofus right now. So it's going to be a good day, right? Okay, so what are we talking about today? I don't think we're going to go 90 minutes, unless you guys have a lot of questions, but I reserved it just in case, or in case we run into it, or we end up having a half-hour knockdown, drag-out brawl of whether or not you should do whether you should use honor lock or not. But we're going to talk about, first of all, just academic integrity as a whole. My goal is not to insult anyone's intelligence. I know a lot of you already know about it, but we'll at least have a general discussion. You know, what is it? Why is it so important? What are some things you can do in your class other than, you know, zapping everybody with your plagiarism detector? Why is it important for us as an institution? Then we're going to show you guys Unicheck, walk you through that real quick. That's the plagiarism detector that Bates has. And they're going to walk you guys through HonorLock real quick, and that is the exam proctoring service that we have. I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to go into either of those last two in depth. Sometime fairly soon, like in the next week or two, we'll do a more in-depth one, and we'll probably have these companies come in and do their seminars for us. If you want those, by the way, I have archived versions, so just shoot me an email and I can give you I think the HonorLock one is about an hour long. It was for the nursing department, and the Unicheck one is about 15 minutes long, but I can send you their seminars, their walkthroughs, and you can do all that. But I don't want to do complete walkthroughs of all this stuff today. I think that's overwhelming when everyone's trying to get things done. So it's going to be the quick overview. Here's what it is. Here's what it does. Here's the basic buttons to click, that sort of thing. And then feel free to follow up with any questions you have. Okay, so sound good, everyone? Thank you, one person with a thumbs up. I assume all of you were typing in the chat that I can't see and said, awesome, Tim, we're excited and ready to go, right? Or not? All right. Let me get my chat window up just in case anything comes up. All right, so what is academic integrity? Again, I think most of you guys, you know all this, but it can be a lot of different things. You know, the big ones people think about are plagiarism. You know, I take somebody else's work, or I buy a term paper online, something like that. It could be cheating. You know, I'm looking over someone's shoulder. If we're talking about online, you know, I'm using my cell phone to look stuff up while I'm taking an exam. It can be sharing login credentials. I let somebody else log in as me, or I log into them. People are accessing stuff they don't. You know, the basic thing is, the question you see there, that fourth bullet is, did the person who got the grade do the work? So when, you know, when Peter gives Johnny's student a B+ in his, what are you teaching this quarter, Peter? 101?
I'm teaching English 175 and psychology.
Okay, so when they take their, you know, psychology class, when you give that student a B+, did the person actually do the work in order to earn that B+? If you want to make it a little more pointed, if we get audited, you know, if someone comes in, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's NWCCU, or for those of you, for example, I see Angela's here, if PNUR is going after their certification, the nursing program, they're going to come in and ask a question very, very close to the last one you see. What step did you take to ensure that the person who got the grade actually did the work? So that's the Bates. I mean, I know that's not your question, it's close to it. That would be the question that Bates would ask, is we and our instructors need to be able to answer that question when some sort of accrediting agency comes in and asks us that. And by the way, there's a lot of good answers to that question. So again, I really want to stress before we get started, I know some of you are in 100% agreement with me on this, but you know, Vericite or Turnitin is not the end all and be all answer to this. Okay, there's lots of different ways to do that. And we're going to talk about that. In fact, we're going to talk about it pretty much right now. So why is it important? Again, common sense, you know, going back to Peter in that psychology class, when they give someone a B plus, that represents something. It says this person has a pretty good, not perfect, but a pretty good grasp of basic principles of psychology. I don't know what your course covers, whether it's, you know, principles or people or how it works in the classroom, whatever it is, but they understand it pretty much. It's an issue of fairness and equity. You give that person a grade, you want to make sure they've earned it, both because that's happening to them and also the people next to them, okay? It can provide a lot of bitterness, a lot of unfairness. If I'm working, I'm doing all this work, you know, most of us have had this at least once in our life. I got a B plus or a C or something on the test, and I know the person sitting next to me just copied from somebody else and they got an A in the course. And that can be very demeaning, demoralizing to me as one of your students, okay? We already talked about accreditation and program accreditation for the college and for you guys. Someone's going to come in and ask you, hey, did you handle this or not? All right. So before we start getting into how to zap students, which we're definitely going to talk about, the first question to ask is how can you actually just build it in the classroom? And these bullets that you see are part of the new Bates Academic Integrity Checklist. And what you'll notice when you look at it and you look at all these bullets we have, there's actually not a lot of checks on it. In fact, there's almost none, because it's not really something where we say, hey, if you use this software or this software or this software or two of these three, then congratulations, you've met the standard. It's not something like the accessibility checklist where we say you need to have these 5 things checked. It's much more, again, your ability, you know, if someone comes to Ingrid and says, hey, did your students pass it? She's got this list here and she says, yeah, I followed these practices, I utilized this software, I did this. So it's really kind of a menu for you guys to pull at in order to get at academic integrity. Again, you may already know all of this stuff, but we're kind of providing this to all of our instructors saying, here's some ways to further academic integrity, especially for those of you who've taught face-to-face almost your entire life and the whole online thing. You know, when we say, how do you know students don't cheat on tests? You go, well, I watch them. I make them come in the classroom and take the test. Well, that might not be an option anymore, okay? So the first thing we really recommend is right off the bat, you know, very beginning of course, whether it's in your syllabus, whether it's in your opening lecture, some people fold it into their first quiz or first homework assignment, but actually teach the information literacy. A lot of instructors just assume that everybody knows, oh, cheating is wrong. Everybody knows that, and then they go on with it. But explain it. What is it? What's an example of it? You know, a great example is citation. You know, if I paraphrase a book, do I have to quote it? Do I have to list the source? What if I put quote marks around it? How long can it be? And a lot of you may have different answers to that, but telling the students, this is what academic integrity is. This is how we're going to define it in this class. And then also second, go on to why is it important? Why shouldn't you cheat? And again, it's an obvious question to us because we know that, well, gosh, if you just cheat and copy the answers out of the book or copy off your neighbor, you're gonna be someone handling, you know, injecting people with drugs or handling a bandsaw or something like that. You're gonna be the person in charge of the network of that company. You really need to actually know this stuff. That seems super obvious to us as the instructors. We need to make sure we express that and explain it explicitly to our students, that that's why we're concerned about it. Okay, a great way to really minimize and decrease the amount of cheating that goes on in the classroom is simply to develop a sense of the community in the classroom. Okay, as people get to know you, the instructor, as people get to know other people in the class, they get a sense of shared values, they get a sense of community. The incidences of cheating then decrease, because now what's happening is when I am in Ingrid's class and I'm cheating, I'm not cheating against Bates. Okay? A lot of people, when they cheat, they think of it that way. If Ingrid has a good and robust class, you know, I respect her as an instructor, I've learned a lot, I've made a community with the people sitting next to me. Now, when I'm cheating, I'm actually cheating against Ingrid, and I'm cheating against, you know, Joe's student who's sitting next to me. Again, I still can do it, but it happens much less as a result of that, because now, you know, the perfect example is, you know, I won't make people raise their hand, but, you know, how many of you, if you gave the cashier a $5 bill and they gave you change for a 20, would keep that $15? You know, some of us will think about it, you know, we'd consider it. Some of us would say, oh man, I'd make sure I got that cashier next week as well, you know. some of us would keep it. How many of us, if we saw someone who was starving and had poor clothes and was very obvious they're barely getting by, and we saw them drop $15, would run and grab that $15 and run away from them? I think that would be a lot less. Okay, so as we kind of have the situation and people aren't just cheating against Bates trying to get as high of a grade as possible, but now they're in that classroom, it happens a lot less. You know, one of the studies that have been done is just something as simple as putting an honor code on the first page of your test. You know, I, Tim Trussler, certified this is my work. When we're going to talk about unit check, they actually have you check that box before you can submit your assignment. You know, you put it on a quiz. You know, you put an actual honor code, like the military will do that before they take a test. Colleges will do that. What they found is that the incidence of cheating, again, go down because you're having people focus on what it is they're actually doing. Okay, the last thing I would say is simply if people cheat, especially if it's something, you know, not something like, oops, they forgot to put a citation in, but people cheat, do report it in fairness to other instructors, because if they do it once, chances are they're doing it more. So, you know, we had a big instance of cheating, and what we found out is that it was going on in a program for several years, and if someone had caught it once and we kind of looked at it in whole, it was real obvious the second we opened it up. Oh man, this entire class is cheating. You know, we saw things like words were being spelled, you know, 3 different people spelled the word incorrectly the same way, you know, kind of thing. Spacing was the exact same. So report it. All right.
Who exactly do we report it to? Is there a specific officer or something on Bates that we report to for
Dean.
those? Who?
That would go to your dean.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So the second cluster that we have, as far as how to decrease it, is to develop what we're going to call authentic assessments. And again, I always say, is there anything at all wrong with the 25-point multiple choice quiz? No, nothing at all wrong with that. They're very good. Many of us were raised on those, okay? Nothing wrong with the true false question. Nothing wrong with objective stuff, especially I know a lot of people who might be new to online learning. They're so excited. Man, if I do true false and multiple choice question, Canvas grades my test for me. That just cut my workload by 75%, which gives me more time to develop the content. So there is no judgment. No one's telling you can't do that. That's not the goal of this at all in any way, shape, or form, okay? But if you want to say what's a great way to decrease the amount of cheating that goes on, the amount of plagiarism that goes on, there's some things you can do to just make the assessments different than that basic, I'm going to write these essays and then I'm going to give them a 100-point multiple choice quiz at the end, okay? The first thing is that you see is simply offer multiple assessments over the course of the quarter. Again, not judging somebody who gives a midterm and a final. There's classes where it lends itself to that, but the higher the stakes of each exam, the greater the chance that someone's going to cheat on it. So instead of doing one final exam, if you can do multiple chapter quizzes, maybe do some 20-point quizzes and 100-point, the more that you spread that stuff out, the less you have people who go, oh my God, it's one test, I'm not prepared for it, I'm going to flunk and I'm going to be thrown out of school if I don't pass this one quiz. I don't think I need to say this, but to everybody, yes, it's still their fault for not studying. You know, we always get the instructor who goes, well, I still should have studied. And I say, yes, absolutely, they should have. But whatever we can do to alleviate that pressure and to keep them from getting out of that situation, they can still screw up the class. We all know that. But offer multiple assessment, multiple types of assessments as well. We all have the student who was brilliant in class. They knew it. They raised their hand first every time you asked a question. And the second they saw the word quiz on Canvas, especially in an online, a weird setting, what happened to all that knowledge? It goes trickling out of their ears and they look at it and go, I forgot what my name is and I can't fill that in, okay? So if you offer them different ways of doing it, hey, here's some exams. Give them a practice quiz before they take the exam. Give them essays, give them projects, give them group work, give them discussions, give them personal reflections, give them multimedia submissions. So the more that we give them more tests, the more that we give them different ways of tests, the farther we get from, we've got 3, tests that are all 1/3 of your grade, and you're gonna live and die based on those 3 tests, okay? And before Angela raises her hand and yells at me, yes, Angela, I understand in nursing, it forces you into that. So you're going to have that in some of those courses where you go, sorry, we've got, national certifications that we have to do. We get that, okay? But where you have that option, vary the assessments as you go on, okay? Monitor student work over the quarter, basic, common sense. Anyone who's taught an English class or something like that realizes it. We had a question about this involving photographs yesterday, but the obvious one is an English course. If somebody says, I doesn't like them books in the first week of the course, and then the last week of the course says, well, the central thesis of Hamlet is that, and rattles off a college level thesis statement. Okay, it's possible that Peter is the greatest instructor in the world and he made them that good in 9 weeks. Take a bow, Peter, okay? But if you see something that if you're giving them these multiple assessment, multiple quizzes, multiple ways of seeing where they're at, you should know where that student is at. And again, we want to see the improvement, but if you look at that and you have that bank there and go, there's just no way that student did that. Brian, our digital media, we talked about that yesterday. It's the same thing with photographs. You'll see a photograph and he'll go, sorry, there's no way that student made that photograph. That's just so much better than anything they've done the entire quarter. I feel very confident they handed their camera over to someone else in the class and said, can you take this picture for me? Okay. Is Kathy Brooks in here by any chance? Or sorry, Kathy Brock? No? Okay. I had a great talk with her last week and she talked about this next bullet. She gives her students assignments. She encourages them to utilize other resources. She wants them to use Google. She wants them to look at articles. She wants them to talk with their fellow students. She wants them to call up experts and ask them and then incorporate that into their final project. And one of the things she also does is she then has them write a reflection paper after that project is done. So they say, what is it you learned from the project? What was difficult? What surprised you? How did your opinions change on this issue? And so that again is going to decrease cheating, because if I know that I have to take ownership of that paper, that project that I turn in, well, then I'm going to be that much more motivated to actually do the work, because I know at the end of the day, if I just handed my paper, to Sharon and Sharon turned it in, then I'm going to be in trouble when I have to do that reflection to the teacher. And especially if they know that that's coming. Okay. And then the last one, we already hit this a whole bunch, but if you've got a big assignment in your class, and again, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Sorry, I'll just pick on Peter because he's English, and that's kind of the one we all think of. Sorry, Peter. But if Peter says they're going to have to write a 10-page college level term paper at the end of class, then break it up. We all remember this. We all had that 6th grade teacher who made us turn in note cards, made us turn in an outline, made us turn in our first sentence and our first paragraph, made us turn in our outline, made us turn in our rough draft. I'm not saying you need to do that for every assignment, but if you've got a giant one, that way, again, you're decreasing the ability to cheat and the desire to cheat, because I'm doing this over the course of the quarter and I'm getting feedback and I'm having to hit all these steps. There's really not a point. I'm not going to go on Course Hero and ask them for 50 note cards that I have to turn in, So I've already done 75% of the work when it comes time to write the essay. Okay. So this is where we hit the pause button very hard. What do we think? Do we agree? Do we disagree? Do we have other ideas we want to share? What do we think about decreasing incidences of academic fraud in our classroom?
Yeah, I actually do that in my writing courses. I, particularly the lower level ones, I have an essay that they need to write or a research paper, and I break it up into make an outline, do a brainstorm, turn in this group of sources that you find and so forth. And by the time they get to the finished product, they've actually had more points accumulate from all the work leading up to it than the actual finished product itself. And I can see the process. And occasionally I do have a student who skips all those steps and then just turns in a final draft. I don't give them points for that. It's absolutely required that you do all the steps before you turn in the final draft. And it works pretty well, I think.
Very obvious question. Is that your right as an instructor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you can require that. Absolutely.
It's about the process, not the product. The product's important, but if I'm really concerned about the student learning, I want to see the process that they go through, not just the finished product.
Yeah, and it's a great point. It's true for every course.
Hmm.
Not only are we teaching them to, whatever it is that your course is teaching them, but you want to teach them how to do that once you're gone.
Hmm.
Great. All right. Any other questions or points?
I have a question,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it goes more into universal design. I've
Mm-hmm.
taken a class once where the assignment gave three choices, like give a presentation, do a test, or write an essay.
Mm-hmm.
And the students were able to pick one of those to basically show their competency out of the area. Is that an acceptable method to use in our courses? Because I always liked the idea, but I talked to some of my colleagues and they weren't very thrilled about that because everybody's supposed to be assessed the same way.
I would disagree with your colleagues as strongly as it's possible to disagree with your colleagues. I would challenge them to point to the line anywhere where it says they must be assessed the same way. They have to be assessed fairly. They have to be assessed accurately. It has to be a good assessment of what their knowledge is. Unless they're, taking a calligraphy class, writing an essay by hand is not part of it. So, for example, if Peter has somebody, he just talked about his, but if he has somebody who does better orally, why would he not, give them the opportunity to demonstrate their mastery of, a psychological principle, offer it orally? Now, it means more work for him. I understand that. Okay. But yeah, if you say, I'm going to give you a choice, you can write an essay or you can shoot a video. I'm going to make you, repair this computer, or I'm going to give you a problem where you have to analyze it. So however you say, this assignment, I think, gets at what the learning objective is. That's absolutely your prerogative as instructor. And I really, really like the multiple ways of doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Tim, you also used the example with your 14-year-old daughter yesterday about
Yeah.
she didn't like to turn in a video of herself, but would rather do an alternative to accomplish the same, learning outcome. So I think it's good to give people choices.
Yeah. Yep. I think so. And unfortunately, now I'm at home and my daughter heard that, but whatever.
In the nursing program, we have found that when people are doing self-critiques, especially some of our English language learners, they do much better when they can do a video self-critique and post that versus a typed, because they feel like they can communicate better and be
Yeah.
understood more thoroughly. So I totally support giving them multiple platforms to use to get
Great.
their points across or turn in an assignment.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
I think these are all great points. And again, these are just good teaching. It's good pedagogy just because it is. But also, again, if you're giving somebody a way to do something they feel more comfortable with, you're decreasing the probability that they're going to cheat, because say, I know the knowledge, but I can't write an essay. I know the knowledge, but I can't perform this specific task. Okay. So you're giving them, by using these multiple ways of assessing them, you're giving the opportunity to show, hey, I absolutely know, how to tie a tourniquet, how to, configure a router. I know how to work with a patient in the dental chair. They're demonstrating it. You're just giving them different ways of showing that to you so that you feel comfortable moving them on to the next class or sending them out into the workplace. And you're not saying, oh, I'm sorry, you're never going to work in the dental field because you can't write a 5-page essay. I assume we all think that that's crazy, right? All right, so last but not least, and we're going to get into our demos here, is use some resources. So you've taught and you've talked to your students about it, you've demonstrated it, you've said why it's important, you've made good assessments so that you say, okay, here's the different ways that I'm going to measure it. You've taken giant exams and you've broken them down, but now the fact is you're actually giving them that quiz, you're giving them assignment. What are some things that you can do to minimize cheating in your classroom, your online classroom especially? The first one, I've got it bold and I've got it huge, is just rotate and adapt the assignments. If you say, what's the single best thing that I can do? This is it right here, okay? because this is where we've gotten into trouble with programs. They give the same test every quarter for years. I'm sorry, at that point in time, I blame the instructor, not the students. You know, if everybody knows that you're going to get the exact same 20 question multiple choice question, and there'll be 4 of them, and everyone knows what they are, I put that at the feet of you, not at the students. Okay, trust me, the students get yelled at for all sorts of cheating, but if the answers are floating around out there because you haven't changed it for 5 years, you know. So rotate the assignments, change them slightly. You know, a real easy thing is if you teach something, does anyone, Ingrid, do you have anything mathy in your class?
Could you repeat that? I was typing an email.
Do you have anything mathy in your class, numerical?
IP addressing.
Okay, so something like
Binary.
that. Yeah, you could give the exact, I mean, it'd be great to give something completely and totally different, but something as basic as just changing the numbers in a question. That just by itself really makes it much harder, if not impossible, to cheat. You know, if I want them to learn multiplication, I can give student A 7 times 7 and student B 8 times 8. They're both being quizzed at virtually the same thing, but it's a different, and it makes it almost impossible to cheat. So rotate the assignments, maybe have 5 assignments and rotate 3 of those 5 every quarter. Again, maybe just change a little bit of it. Say, you know, look at it and go, can I change just 1 or 2 sentences here that make it impossible to copy from last quarter to this quarter? You know, that's it. You know, maybe you give the exact same essay about a book that they read, but you just have them write about a different character this time. That's all that it takes in some cases. Okay, do monitor homework sites. I'll go light on this because you guys have enough work to do, but be aware that they're out there. You know, where they're talking about Course Hero, where they're talking about sharing Quizlet, things like that. The stuff is out there, and you want to at least check and make sure that you're not seeing all of, you know, 5 years worth of exams floating around on a website out there. Okay, yes, Ingrid.
I do have a question about putting up, switching out assignments, because
Mhm.
Canvas is being very difficult. Sometimes I feel like I disable an assignment and like magic, it comes back and haunts me. And the students ask me, "What, are we supposed to do this too?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Oh,
When you say disabled, you mean unpublish?
yeah.
I have no great suggestions for you other than double and triple check on that. It never should happen, but I've had enough things happen to me that shouldn't happen that I would never go, "You're crazy, Ingrid, that never happens." You know, so
Okay.
I'm sure it does. I would just keep double checking it.
I've
Okay.
seen that in Canvas too, where I'll disable or unpublish an assignment or even take it out of a module, but it doesn't show up in the gradebook, but it shows up in the to-do list, or it shows up in the syllabus at the bottom. And then students, if they happen to access it that way, they just click on it and go and start doing it, even though it's not really supposed to be counted. And I found that the only thing I can do really is just delete it completely
Yeah,
to make all traces of it disappear, which is
that's
kind of a pain.
Yes,
That's
it
what
is.
I did too, but then I lose my assignments and then I
Right.
get to import them and creating, and it's just a lot of work.
Well, I'll keep like a sandbox for a course, and I'll have all of those in there. And then when I copy the sandbox course over, then I can make adjustments to that specific course for that specific quarter and delete things, but I still have it in my sandbox, which I can use in a later quarter.
Yeah, and that's where the 3 out of 5 thing comes into play. You might have 5 assignments and bring all 5 into your fall 2020 course, and then delete two of those 5 out.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Yep. Okay, so we talked about homework sites. Canvas has a lot of settings that you can utilize. The big one, again, is quiz banks. If you're going to do a multiple choice quiz, write 50 questions, and then if you don't know how to do this, we can walk you through how to do it. But tell Canvas, if you've got 5 students, I want 5 different quizzes, and I want you to pick 20 of those 50 questions and make each one worth 5 points. That way student A, B, C, D, and E are all getting completely different quiz quizzes, and they don't have that ability. The nice thing about that, and again, I know it's more work at the beginning, understand completely, but that means it's different from quarter to quarter. That means you can generate practice quizzes and actual quizzes. It means you can generate retakes. So yes, you have to invest that time at the beginning. I get that. But if you get a 50-question quiz bank for a 20-question quiz, it's so much easier going through the course than over the course of the next couple of years. But you do have to invest, 2, 3, 4 times as much time that first time you're making that quiz to get those out there and available. Okay, so that's a big one. I assume all of you know that you can shuffle questions and shuffle answers on questions. You can require passwords before people get in. You can limit the time, which I'm a huge fan of. I know there's accessibility issues and accommodations, so we're going to do that to the side. But one of the best ways to stop cheating is to just say, okay, I'm going to give you, you've got to define 30 things. Or, if we're talking about PNUR, you've got to identify 50 bones. I'm going to give you 35 minutes to label these. Go. Great. I've just pretty much disabled Google, haven't I? You either know them or you don't. So it doesn't work on every quiz, but that's a great way to disable, talking to people, Googling answers, things like that. If I've got 18 seconds per question, I just need to look at that and go true, false, true. I don't have the ability to Google it at that point in time where it becomes very difficult. Okay. Are you guys familiar with properties in Word?
Yes, that's how I caught people cheating.
Yay. Can you please explain how you did that? Because a lot of people aren't aware of this.
Well, let's see. It's in the options. No, wait. I had to pull up
That's
Word.
okay. It's in file properties.
Yes.
You can basically see who the author is of a document.
Yep. What else can you see?
Well, when it was created as well, when it was last modified, that type of thing. And I have caught people cheating by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It also tells you how long they spent on it.
Yes.
So, if somebody spent 1 minute typing a 10-page essay, there's a pretty good chance that cut and paste was involved. Okay. So that's one thing you can do is you can require, if you go into assignments, when it says you can require certain file submissions, you can say, I only accept DOC and DOCX, so that you can go in and look at that. Okay. All right, and then our last bullet is utilize Bates resources. So we have HonorLock, which we're going to look at in a second. That is an online proctoring service. So what happens is someone goes to take my final exam, and we'll show you how to configure this in a second. That's what we're going to do. They go in, they turn it on, it proctors the exam. Someone's viewing that. If there's anything that happens that's suspicious, it does not take any action. So it's not going to flunk our Johnny student or Susie student. What happens is Sharon can go in and look at the results, and certain times will be flagged. So if I took 20 minutes to take the test, they're going to send the video of that, and Sharon will see if something that's flagged and says, you should look at 18 minutes and 14 seconds. And so she goes and looks at it, and she sees me doing this, or it says that I opened up a different website, msofficecheat.com or something like that, wordhacks.com. So it tells you that that's happened. So it's not going to take any action at all, but it's going to give you a report. It's going to flag potentially bad things. You can then go back and look at those, and it's 100%, and I want to stress this because you guys are the instructors, it's 100% on you. Sharon can look at it and go, that's minor. She probably was just checking what the time was or something like that. She can say, that looks pretty serious. I'm going to dock him 10%. She can kick them out of the class, flunk them, and report them to the dean and say, I'm kicking this person out and recommending further action, because very clearly, so she has that full range of options, but it's 100% her option. All that HonorLock is going to do is they're going to monitor it and then flag potential violations for her to then review. Okay. Ingrid, question.
Does HonorLock only work in Canvas, or will it also work if you have a third-party vendor that you're linking to from Canvas?
Okay, we're getting into HonorLock now. The answer to your question is absolutely, you can do that within it. There is a third-party interface where you can type that in. So you can use HonorLock. Okay, so what's the deal with HonorLock? The college is paying for it. We want you to use it. Please, 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 please use it. The only thing we ask is it's about $4 to $4.50 a pop to take a quiz. So please don't use it for like a 3-question syllabus quiz. Okay, so on the one continuum you have that. On the other continuum you have the, one of Angela's, you have to pass this course in order to get your nursing license. You've got the full thing. I'll let you guys figure out where you want to draw that line as far as what's something that requires monitoring, what doesn't. We're not going to second guess you at all or come in and go, oh man, Peter, you cost us $18 with those 4 quizzes. We're not going to do that, but just be aware that it is $4.50 a pop. Again, we want you to use it. We have the money. We've bought licenses, but just be aware of that. So it's free for you, free for your students to use. They do have to use a laptop. So if all of you leave right now, I'll understand why. It has to be a laptop. It does not work on a cell phone. It does not work on a tablet. They have to have Chrome because it's a Chrome extension that they have to use, okay? And in order to have full functionality, you have to have a camera. And this could be like a 20-minute discussion, but I'm gonna keep it at least somewhat short. Yes, you can set it up so they don't use the camera. You do have that option, but obviously that's defeating at least half the purpose of it by letting them take it on a computer without a camera, okay? But you do have that functionality because I've had people ask, I got 3 students who don't have a camera, they can't afford a webcam. Can I offer the test? And the answer is yes, absolutely you can, okay? So I think those are the requirements. You're gonna go in and turn it on. We'll show you how to in a second. You say, yes, I want this test to have HonorLock. I want these settings. Your students go in, they go to take the test. Basically, they go in, they have to go through this process. They have to have the extension installed on Chrome. By the way, they can take it off immediately afterwards because it's an extension, but it has to be installed in Chrome. They have to have Chrome. If you check yes to all the boxes, they have to take a picture of themselves in the camera. They have to hold their ID up to the camera and verify that Tim Trussler is in fact Tim Trussler, so someone else isn't taking it. So then they compare the ID to the photo of the person taking it. They have to, and I'm going to try not to cause vertigo. Well, actually, I guess since I have a virtual background, you won't know what I'm doing, but nope, you can't even see. But I just spun a 360 with the computer, okay? They have to do a 360. They have to show the test area. And basically at that point in time, then they go ahead and start. Okay, so without getting into what button do I click, because I'm going to show that next, does that make sense to everybody as far as the basic overview of the process?
Yes.
Really? I did that well? I don't believe you. Because I was confused after talking like that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So with the HonorLock, so for example, I have like the asepsis infection control class, and they don't pass it, they don't go to the clinical next quarter.
Correct.
And they have only one chance, like only another chance to do the retake if they flunk it. So will the retake also on HonorLock? Is it something possible, or it has to be only once?
Sorry, you shorted out right in the middle of that sentence. I heard blah, 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 HonorLock was what I heard. Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. Excuse me. So if they are taking a quiz or like a final test and with the HonorLock and they flunk it, according to the on the syllabus saying that they have only one chance to do a retake. So will the retake be possible to be done with HonorLock?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
HonorLock works with all of your requirements, or almost all of them. So if you say they get 2 attempts, they get 2 attempts. If you say they have 30 minutes, or it has to be taken Monday from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, it'll honor all of those things. So it's here to just proctor it. You're the one who makes all the decisions as far as how long they have, how many times they can take it, how many questions, what types of questions, all of that. And I'll show you the interface in a second. You can even say things like, Johnny here gets accommodations. He's allowed to have a pet in the room because he has a service animal, you know, whatever it is, you know, you can do all of that. So within as much as you can, you've got the ability to set all of those parameters. HonorLock is just going to proctor it according to what you said.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I gave you a long answer, sorry, but I really want to stress that point. This isn't HonorLock coming in and running your class. This is HonorLock coming in and saying, Nasser wants his class run this way. Let's help him run his class this way. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? No? Okay. Then, and does anybody want to yell and scream about how horrible HonorLock is? Because I'll turn the floor over to you for 5 minutes. I'm looking at you, Angela. Or you can quote your students, right? Okay, then I assume we're all good. If we have time, we'll circle back and talk about it because almost every student, almost every teacher has used it, has talked about how they get pushback from the students. So if we have time, we'll kind of talk about that. The only thing that I'll say towards that is we are not in any way, shape, or form saying you must use it. So if you try and use it and you have a revolt of students, then get rid of it, okay? There are legitimate concerns about as far as privacy, as far as accessibility and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not here, I'm not paid by HonorLock or by Unicheck to say, please use it. You know, I don't get paid based on the usages. We're providing this as a tool. And if you try it and you say with my students, it doesn't work, great, get rid of it. Let's talk about something else. All right, let me stop share. Okay, everybody sees getting started in Canvas, correct? I'm so glad Peter's giving me the thumbs up because you're the only one with your camera on, Peter. I'm counting on you here. Okay, so what you do, again, I'm going to take a broad overview. If you have a specific question, ask me, but I'll send resources out after this is done and the recording out to people. So I'm going to go over, for example, there's like 15 questions to answer. I'm going to send you guys a handout that goes over each one of those in depth and some of the different settings that you have. So again, this is not the HonorLock presentation. We're not going to spend 60 minutes on each one of those buttons, but we'll walk you through the basics of it. And if you have specific questions, we'll try and answer it, or we'll get you the resources that'll do it. Okay, so actually, I'm going to start. Again, you guys, I'm looking at the list of people. You guys are all competent, but in case you're not aware of this, HonorLock is disabled. You would go into Settings, click on that, and then go to your Navigation tab. And I don't know if you guys all know this or not, but if something that's disabled in your class, you just go down here, and I'm going to click on Zoom instead, and you'd click on Enable because HonorLock is already enabled. But the default setting is for HonorLock to be disabled. So the first thing you do is just enable it in the class, and then you click on the HonorLock link. Okay, and you'll see your list of quizzes. What I would strongly recommend, everyone sees these 3 dots here, you have add a practice exam, and I've already done that, but I would really recommend if you've got people who've never used HonorLock, you can add a practice exam. There's no charge for it, by the way, so please don't worry about somebody taking it 10 times and costing us $45. No charge to it. Your students can take it. It's a basic 3-question quiz, but it gives them the ability to run it and see if their computer's configured right, if they have the extension on, all that sort of stuff. So I just click on add practice exam. And there we are. Now I have, because I'd already added one, I have 2 HonorLock practice quizzes. So that'll just assign a quiz that you can then move into a module. You can publish it. You can do whatever you want, but that's available to your students to actually take it as a practice exam. And again, no charge for that. So go ahead, let them take it as many times as they want. Okay, so I'm going to click on Scavenger Hunt. And so I just click on Enable. And everybody sees this screen, right? So I can toggle everything on and off that I want. The first thing you see is the webcam, and that's obviously turned on because that's kind of the point of HonorLock, is they're checking to see whether I'm grabbing notes, talking to someone next to me using my cell phone. But I can, if I have a student without a camera, turn it off. I could turn off the record screen. So each one of these I can toggle on and off to get a perfectly configured exam. If I have students who said, man, I would do this, but I don't want you guys seeing where I live, that deeply offends me. You may decide I don't want to fight that battle. I'm going to turn the room scan off. And if it means that somebody can hide notes behind their computer, so be it. You know, what's the thing? You know, I'm gonna lose the battle, win the war. So you can turn each one of these off. You can give them access to a calculator. One to be aware of right here is you can whitelist URLs. So, you know, let's say it's a nursing exam and you say they have to be able to go to this page in order to look up resources while they're taking the quiz. You can whitelist that page and say they can't go to any page except for these pages right here, and you can whitelist those. So you see some of the other things. You can disable printing. You can disable copy and paste. They can't, you know, copy something, have it stored in the clipboard and paste it in for the essay or use it that way. You can use the browser guard that blocks them from accessing sites. If you turn that off, by the way, it'll just tell you what sites they visited. So it would say, oh, they visited again, you know, www.introdopsychology.com or something like that. Okay, so any questions on the proctoring settings? And I don't have my chat up, so you're gonna have to talk out loud if you have a question. So any questions on this?
No.
That's all you do. You turn it on, you do your proctoring settings. Let's move down a bit. Here's your whitelist URLs. Here's student guidelines. So again, Johnny student, Susie student, you can actually give them the ability to do certain things. Like you can say, it's an open book test. That means they're not going to flag Johnny student when he pulls the book out. You could say pre-written notes are allowed. You can decide whether or not to wear headphones, whether or not to wear hats. You can say at the end of an hour, they're allowed a 5-minute bathroom break. Okay. Angela, I don't know if this one helps your case or not, but you can tell your students that you click the background noise allowed. So if someone's taking a class and you know for a fact, or taking a quiz, you know for a fact, you know, in Angela's case, you had a student who had screaming kids in the background, you can check that box, which means they're not going to flag noise in the background nearly as much. It's not as sensitive to that. Okay. There's also accommodations. We talked about this. So if you say, you know, I'll use the example of the, you know, the therapeutic pet with social anxiety disorder. Johnny's allowed to have a cat, you know, or a peacock or a dog or whatever it is. You know, you can say that. You know, if you say, okay, this student has a learning disability, so he's allowed this certain accommodations, you can type that in. You can do it for the whole class, or you can say specifically, Johnny student is allowed this thing. So you can type in accommodations. The proctor will see these as they're taking the exam. Okay. And then obviously, HonorLock strongly recommends locking it down outside of those hours so they can't view it outside of the exam dates. And then once I'm done, I click on save. Okay, and here we see the readiness survey and we see results and settings, meaning it's been enabled now. So that's the process. Again, really simple. Any questions on that?
So my HonorLock is not getting into my Canvas even after the authorization. It's saying that I have to do something to the settings, like to allow cookies or something like that. I don't know.
I'm not certain. Why don't you take a look at it and then give me a call after this, and we can go over it kind of individually on that, because it should be doing. The basic thing would be allow it, but yeah, this is for people who hate on what NASR's saying is one of the big ones. You know, it does require a certain level of computer competency. Like I had to go in and allow manual click the button to allow Canvas, or sorry, to allow Chrome to record my screen, because that was a security change and I had to have admin rights for that. So that may be something that just scuttles all of your plans. So do be aware of that. Okay. But assuming that it opens, that's what happens. Then what happens is, let's say I'm a student, I come in and I go into my module, or I click on quiz and I click on scavenger hunt. And actually, I think I'm going to show you guys at least the beginning, but I'm not going to run a full, but let me go into people and make myself a student real quick. There we are. So now I'm a student. I click on modules and what were we? That was scavenger hunt. And then I click on take the quiz. And now, if you've never used HonorLock, notice you've got the screen that you've never seen before, right? Does everyone see that? So it says this test is proctored by HonorLock. It says the instructions that I did. So it says you're allowed an open book, you're allowed notes, you can't have a scratch paper, you are allowed restroom breaks, background. So it's recapping for the students all the conditions that I just put in. Okay, I'm going to stop right here, but because it's going to be multiple screens also, but I've clicked on launch proctoring, and this is why you might want to give them that practice exam. It's going to walk me through about 5 minutes of stuff before they can start the test. I would really recommend warning people in advance. Angela can probably speak to this about the anxiety level of students, because you click on it, it takes your picture, you have to hold your ID up, you have to do the 360 scan, you have to authorize the computer. So, you know, if you do that, then you know, the students have to go through that entire process. So kind of make them aware of that. That it's not just going to be click the button and then, you know, off you go on the test. They are going to have to do some things first. Okay. So again, let's pause. Any questions on that?
No, but can you provide us with the 1 hour video on from the company?
Yeah, I will send that, and I will also send, we're about to do unit check as well, the plagiarism one. I'll send both of those to you guys. You can watch those at your convenience. You can just get to the parts that you care about on that. Okay. And they'll actually show you going through and taking the quiz, exactly what it looks like. They'll also show you the instructor view, so you can see exactly what the feedback looks like as well. Okay. All right, so that's our overview of HonorLock. That's why you use it. That's what it looks like. As you see, it's actually pretty simple. Honestly, it's easy for you. If you're going to have any problems with it, it's going to be from the students, not from you, because you saw it. Your work is 30 seconds is all that's required. Okay. All right, then let me click on assignments. So that was HonorLock. And then if we click on assignments, I'm going to create a new assignment. Check. Blah, blah, blah. Please fill this out. Write an essay. Make it awesome. Freud, Shakespeare, etc. Okay. 10 points. Display in points. And I'm going to set this on no submission first. You'll notice if you look down here, you don't see unit check anywhere. Don't freak out if that ever happens. UniCheck is only designed to grade online submissions. So obviously it's not going to grade, you know, shop work or a blood draw or something like that. So it must be an online submission. Then as soon as you check either file uploads or text entry or both, you'll notice down here, does everybody see the plagiarism review here? And we only have one, by the way. So click on UniCheck. Okay. You have some toggles here. UniCheck and I would recommend as strongly as possible, unless you really know what you're doing, just leave them on. No reason to change those. These are kind of the best configuration for how sensitive you want it to be, what sort of stuff you want it to flag, whether you're going to add it to the library and check it against other pieces of work. So I would just leave these on and move right down to here. Show report to students. You have a couple of options. Again, you're the boss, you can decide how to do it. I recommend immediately, because the point of this is not to have students cheat, you know, do the thing where you leave the cookie out for your kid to punish him when he eats it. You know, the goal is not to zap them for cheating. The goal is to show them, hey, that thing you're submitting, it's going to get flagged. Here's why. So I recommend immediately. You can also have them get their feedback after the assignment is graded, after the due date, or never. You do have those options. I'm going to click on immediately. Like I said, that's my preference. And that's it for the unit check part. Okay, so any questions on that?
All good.
Again, I told you guys these were simple. Let me go back to PowerPoint real quick. And I assume you guys can't see it. Okay, does everybody see the unit check screen?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens is after the students submit it, if you look on the left side, you can either look at it in the grade book this way, vertically, which says, here's all the results for my chapter 11 review, or next to it to the right, you can look at it for just one student's result. So this is all of Johnny's students' results. So you can look at it both ways. You can either see it in the grade book for the assignment or the student individual grade book for how they're doing. And so, you know, common sense here, green is good, yellow and orange are not as good, red is bad. Again, it doesn't mean that they cheated, but it does mean that it's been flagged. So you can take a look at those. And then if you click on those flags, it'll give you a report. And so you can go in and actually, let me get off of that for 1 second. So it'll go in, it'll say, you know, 95% of this appears to have come from the web. It'll give you the sites. You can look at the sites and see exactly where it was on Wikipedia that it compares to. It does also upload all of this work, including from previous quarters. If you're someone who teaches like Peter, if you gave the same essay every quarter on Sigmund Freud or something like that, it would compare it to previous as long as all of them were loaded up to Unicheck. And so it might say, hey, this looks the exact same as, 2 years ago, this essay. And again, it doesn't take any action, but it makes Peter aware of it. He can click on it and go, holy cow. And in fact, I'm going to give you a good example of a holy cow. These are 2 submissions in a fire services class. And so while individually there's nothing that you'd be concerned about, it's homework. So obviously none of this is copied from the web. This was flagged. Let's see, who wants to volunteer? Thanks, Ingrid. Ingrid, do you have any concerns about these 2 students?
It's exactly the same typing, exactly the same formatting.
Yeah.
So I think they just copied from each other.
Yeah. If you look really, really closely, like on question 12, Ford is capitalized in one and not capitalized on the other, but that's literally the only difference is a couple of capitalizations. So yeah, we've got a whole bunch of concerns. Again, Unicheck doesn't flunk the 2 students right off the bat, but it flags it. It directs her right to that point where she can look at it and she can then decide what to do and go talk to the students and, you know, decide what am I going to do as a result of this. So it's giving her the tools and the opportunity to talk to those students and see what's going on. And sometimes there is a good explanation. Sometimes it's horrible. I was lazy and copied. But sometimes there's a good explanation. Like, oh, I thought this was studies that were allowed to do that. She may decide to give that second student the opportunity to resubmit it. It's her call on that. Okay. Ingrid, you had a question?
Yes. Is there a tool also that can be integrated into the discussion board? If there are discussion board questions, the students reply, but they're just copy and pasting off of Google. Is there anything that can be integrated with that?
Not that we offer, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, well, no problem. Just a question.
Nope, I think you're back to the, if it looks suspicious, copy it into Google and see if it pops up.
Tim, where did you get that Unicheck report at again? How did you get that on your screen?
On either one of these.
Yeah, how did you pull that up?
Yep, so on the left side, you have the assignment from the grade book. On the right side, you have the individual one. And then if you click on that, for example, wrap up 9, you see has a red flag next to it. You click on that red flag and to the right of it will show you all of the places where plagiarism may have occurred. It will give you all the places and the % similarity score.
No, I'm asking how did you get this Unicheck to show on the screen from Canvas?
I'm not understanding your question, sorry.
Okay, say you're looking at your course in Canvas.
Mm-hmm.
and you see all your modules and assignments and all that stuff on your left.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get UniCheck? Is that you just click on UniCheck on the left-hand side like you would modules or whatever else, or what?
Oh, nope, this is from the grade book. So if you go into the
This,
grade book,
okay, that's what, so
yeah, remember that I turned it on the assignment?
yes,
Got to turn that on. So in the grade book, these will be there automatically. You don't have to configure it or go any place special or anything like that. You just, in the grade book, these will naturally appear.
okay, thank you.
But that, I think that answers your question, right?
Yes,
Okay. Yep. And anywhere you see grades, whether it's the grade book or the individual student report, you'll see those flags you can then click on and get a report, and you can go much more granular, much more granular.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I'm good. Thank you for doing this.
I would say too with the UniCheck, sometimes when a student submits it, it takes a little bit of time before the report actually gets generated. So I've had a couple students who were like looking for that report and it's not ready yet. And so they're
Right.
kind of like, why didn't it work? And they need to know that sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, it does. Usually it's 30 seconds to a minute, but not always.
Right.
You're right. Yep. Okay, good point. All right. I think I told you we didn't have an hour and a half of material unless you guys have a lot of questions. So I think we're done. I will send the recording of the video out probably if it's not catastrophic. I think it turned out good. We'll do that. We'll also send you the links to the videos, the handouts from them. I'm going to try not to drown you, but also want to give you guys the resources that you need if you want to go forward with this. And as always, the big takeaway is if you decide you want to do this, you need any assistance at all, talk to us and we can show you how to use it, how to configure it, how to run it, all those sorts of questions. Okay? All right. Other than that, thank you guys for a great training. We may or may not see you tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks. Have a
Bye-bye.
good day.